I never imagined that one night, just one night, could change how I saw my best friend forever. My name is Eli. I'm 22, gay, and I've known Josh since we were both 9 years old. He's always been a guy everyone likes. Broad shoulders, charming smile, great with girls. He's as straight as they come. At least, that's what I always believed. We've been inseparable since 4th grade. He was the first person I ever came out to. I remember trembling as I told him I was gay during junior year of high school, afraid I'd lose him. But Josh just looked at me and said, "You're still my best friend, Eli. That's never going to change." And it didn't, until this year. See, Josh and I both moved to Chicago last summer. He started working construction with his uncle's company. I'm in college studying graphic design. We share a 2-bedroom apartment, just like we always talked about. It felt like living a dream with your best friend. Comfortable, safe, familiar. But in the past few months, something shifted. Subtle things. Josh started making strange comments. Like, once, I caught him staring at me from the kitchen doorway when I was changing my shirt. Another time, he joked, "If I were into guys, you'd be in trouble." I laughed. But something about the way he said it stuck with me. And then came that night. It was a Thursday. Cold, quiet. We just binge-watched 3 episodes of some mindless show on Netflix. I had a paper due the next morning, so I headed to bed early. Josh stayed in the living room, half drunk on beer, flipping through YouTube clips. I closed my bedroom door but left it slightly ajar, something I always did for air circulation. As I lay in bed scrolling through my notes, I heard Josh's voice through the hallway, just soft murmurs at first. Probably a call or another video. Then nothing. Silence. Until I heard footsteps. They crept softly across the hallway, growing louder until they stopped right outside my door. I didn't move. I thought maybe he needed something. Phone, charger, blanket, whatever. But the door didn't swing open like usual. It just inched. Slowly. Like someone trying not to be noticed. I turned off my phone screen and kept still, pretending I'd already fallen asleep. Through the corner of my eye, I saw him. Josh. He stood there in the doorway, silent, watching. My heart thudded in my chest. I wanted to ask what he was doing, but something about his presence froze me. It wasn't threatening, just confusing, like he was lost in a moment that wasn't meant to exist. And then something even stranger happened. He stepped in, carefully, like every step carried a weight. He walked over to the side of my bed and stood there, just watching me sleep. I kept my breathing steady, my eyes half closed but alert. He crouched down close to my face and whispered something. Too soft to catch, but his tone, soft, unsure, almost guilty, made my chest tighten. I didn't know what to do. Say something? Sit up? Confront him? But before I could decide, he reached out. His fingers brushed my hair, gentle, hesitant, like someone touching a memory. He let his hand linger there for a moment too long. Then he pulled away quickly, like he caught himself doing something he shouldn't. He turned, left the room, and shut the door softly behind him. I lay there frozen, staring at the ceiling. What the hell just happened? The next morning, Josh acted normal. Too normal. Making eggs, cracking jokes, asking if I wanted coffee, like the night before hadn't happened at all. I watched him closely. He didn't look embarrassed. He didn't avoid eye contact. He was the same. But I wasn't. My thoughts spiraled all day. Why had he come in? Why touch me? Why whisper? Was he drunk? Was it just a weird moment? Or was there something deeper he wasn't admitting, even to himself? That's when I started remembering other things. The late-night conversations that turned oddly vulnerable. The nights he sat too close on the couch. The way he once looked away too quickly when I caught him watching me. I'd never let myself entertain the idea that Josh might feel something more, because that would only end in heartbreak, right? Straight guys don't just change. And even if he did feel something, would he ever admit it? I didn't sleep well that night. The next few days were a blur. Josh kept being Josh, joking, loud, relaxed, but I started noticing the cracks, the longer stares, the quick subject changes when things got emotional. The tiny hesitations. I didn't say anything. Not yet, because I needed to be sure. And deep down, a part of me was terrified of what I might discover if I pushed. Hey, if you're still listening and this story has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts so far. What do you think Josh is hiding? That weekend, something else happened. Something that pushed me closer to the truth. We were watching a movie, just the two of us, and Josh fell asleep on the couch. His head rested on my shoulder. And in that moment, I felt it. His fingers softly brush against mine, like he wasn't sure if he was dreaming. And just before he drifted off completely, I swear, I heard him murmur my name. Eli. Soft, broken, almost like a question. That was the moment I knew something inside him was unraveling, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. Josh didn't say anything the next morning. Not about the way he'd fallen asleep with his head on my shoulder. Not about how his fingers brushed against mine in that gentle, almost uncertain way. And definitely not about whispering my name like it carried weight. "Sleep good?" he asked casually over breakfast, eyes fixed on his cereal. I nodded. "Yeah, you?" "Like a rock," he said with a shrug. Could have slept through a tornado. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to play along and pretend nothing had changed between us. But something had. I could feel in the way my chest tightened whenever he walked into the room, in the way my mind kept circling back to that whisper, that soft, broken Eli from the night before. Something wasn't right. Or maybe, for the first time, something was becoming honest. That afternoon, I stayed home. I told my professor I wasn't feeling well. Truth was, I couldn't focus. Not on school, not on anything. I just sat at my desk staring out the window, trying to piece together the Josh I thought I knew with the Josh who stood by my bed whispering in the dark. Could someone hide feelings for that long? Could Josh, my straight best friend, be struggling with something he didn't even know how to admit? The more I thought about it, the more past moments came rushing back. Like last winter, when he told me he wasn't into labels. "People are complicated," he said. "Sometimes I feel like we all have some part of us we're scared to talk about." Or the time he got drunk at a party and nearly confessed something. I remember him leaning close and saying, "There's stuff I don't tell anyone, not even you. And you're the one person I wish I could." But I never pressed, because I didn't want to hear something that would ruin everything. Josh came home early that night. It was unusual. He normally stayed out with the guys after work, watching the game or playing pool. But that day, he came in quietly, dropped his bag, and sat on the couch with a beer, eyes blank, like something was heavy on his mind. "You good?" I asked from the kitchen. He gave me a small nod. Just tired. I didn't buy it. He looked like someone wrestling with a truth that wouldn't stay buried. "Want to talk about it?" He shrugged. "There's not really anything to say." A beat passed. Then he added, "You ever feel like you're living a version of yourself that doesn't match what's really going on inside?" My hand froze on the coffee mug I was washing. I turned slowly. All the time. Josh didn't look at me. He stared at the muted TV screen, watching static snow on a paused football replay. "I keep thinking about that night," he said, almost in a whisper, "when I came into your room." My heart dropped into my stomach. "I was awake," I said softly. "I saw you." He nodded slowly. "I figured." We sat in silence. There were 100 things I wanted to ask. Why did you come in? Why did you touch me? Why did you say my name? But none of the words would form. I was afraid if I spoke, I'd scare him off. And for the first time, it felt like he was this close to saying what I'd waited years to hear. But then he stood up. "I'm gonna shower," he mumbled, already walking toward the hallway. Long day. And just like that, the wall was back up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying everything. His words, the way he said them, the look in his eyes. There was pain there, and fear. Maybe shame, too. I couldn't help wondering. What if Josh was feeling something for me, something he didn't know how to face? I thought about what would happen if I confronted him. Would he admit it? Would it ruin everything? What if he lashed out? What if I lost him? But worse than all those questions was the one I couldn't stop asking. What if he felt the same way I did and never got the courage to say it? The next morning, I decided to test the waters. While we had coffee, I brought up an old memory, back when we were 16 and dared each other to kiss random strangers at a party. Remember that night? I asked, smirking. You ended up kissing that one guy just to mess with everyone. Josh chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Oh, yeah, Mikey. He was chill. That was wild. You didn't seem fazed by it. He shrugged. Didn't feel weird. I took a sip of coffee and watched him carefully. Ever wonder if maybe that didn't mean nothing? He paused, just for a second, then gave a half smile. You saying I'm secretly into dudes? I raised an eyebrow. You tell me. He laughed, a little too quickly. Nah, man. You're the only guy I'd ever... Nah, I'm messing with you. But the crack was there. He wanted me to pick at it. And I knew then I couldn't keep dancing around this. If I didn't push, he never would. That evening, we sat on the balcony. It was cold, but neither of us cared. Josh had a blanket wrapped around his shoulders and a beer in hand. I had tea and a question I'd been rehearsing in my head all day. I need to ask you something, I said quietly. He looked over, his face unreadable in the dim streetlight glow. That night, I said, you whisper my name. Why? Josh looked away. I don't remember, he said. Don't lie. A long silence stretched between us. Then he took a deep breath and said, because I dream about you sometimes. My throat tightened. What kind of dreams? He looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't smile to cover the discomfort. He didn't joke. He just looked tired. The kind that mess with your head, that make you question everything you thought you knew. I swallowed hard. You ever think you might not be straight? I asked. He didn't answer right away. I don't know what I am, he said finally, but sometimes when I look at you, I feel something, and it scares the hell out of me. We sat in silence, the weight of his confession hanging in the air like frost. I don't want to lose you, he added, voice barely above a whisper. You're the only thing that feels real most days. If you've ever been in a situation where someone close to you started blurring lines you didn't expect, you know how messy and emotional it gets. By the way, if you're enjoying this story and want more like it, or there's a specific LGBTQ plus topic or true story you'd love to see turned into a video, let us know in the comments or post it in the community tab. We're always listening. Later that night, I was in my room, sitting on my bed with the door open. Josh walked by, stopped at the frame. You still up? He asked. I nodded. He stepped in, hesitated, then sat at the edge of my bed. I meant what I said, he murmured. I don't know what this means. I'm confused as hell, but I'm not making it up. I believe you. He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was searching for a version of himself in my eyes that he couldn't see in the mirror. Then he said the last thing I expected. Would it be okay if I stayed in here tonight? Just to talk. I nodded. He didn't crawl into bed. He just sat there, shoulder brushing mine, heart thudding loud enough to hear. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was in love alone. Josh sat beside me on the bed like he had nowhere else to go. No jokes, no defenses, just silence. Real, heavy silence. I'd seen him angry before. I'd seen him sad. But never this vulnerable. Like he'd peeled away the last layer and didn't know if I'd still want to look at what was underneath. We sat like that for a long time. Then finally he said, There's something I never told anyone. His voice was low. Tight. You don't have to. I started. No. He cut in, shaking his head. I need to. I've been carrying it around for so long, I can't even remember who I was before. I didn't say anything. Just waited. He stared at his hands, fingers fidgeting with the edge of my blanket, like it anchored him. When I was 14, he began, I spent a summer at my cousin's place in Tennessee. I didn't know anyone there, just my older cousin Nick. He was 17 at the time. He was cool, confident, way more experienced than me. Josh paused. My chest tightened. We used to hang out in the basement, play video games, watch movies late at night. Then one night, He started talking about girls, kissing, all that. I didn't know much, but I pretended like I did. A bitter smile ghosted his face, and then he asked if I'd ever kissed anyone before. I said no. So he said, "You want to practice? Just so you don't mess up when it's a girl." I didn't know what to say. I laughed, thought he was joking, but he wasn't. Josh looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. I said, "Okay." My throat burned. He kissed me. Not just once. A few times. Then things went further. Stuff I didn't even understand back then. And the worst part is, I didn't stop him. He looked away, swallowing hard. I didn't want it, but I also didn't know how to say no. I was scared. I was confused. And for years, I told myself it didn't mean anything. That it was just a weird moment. But it messed me up, man. It made me question everything. Who I am, what I want, what it means to feel safe around someone. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I let it go. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." I whispered. He nodded stiffly. I thought I buried it. But lately, being around you, sleeping in the same apartment, watching the way you live your truth without apology, it's like that part of me woke up again. And I don't know if it's trauma or if it's more than that. He looked me in the eye then. "I think about you, not just in passing. I think about you, about what it would be like to be with you." I swallowed hard. "And then I hate myself for it," he added quickly, "because you're my best friend, and because what if I'm just broken? What if I'm just reliving something I never processed right?" "Josh," I said gently, "feeling something for someone doesn't make you broken. And what happened to you wasn't your fault. But whatever you're feeling now, it's yours. It's real. It matters." He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. "I don't know what I am, Eli. You don't have to know. Not yet. But I know I feel safer with you than I've ever felt with anyone. And that scares the hell out of me." We didn't sleep much that night. We talked. Really talked. Josh told me he'd had moments before, flashes of confusion with other guys, feelings he'd buried under drinking or relationships that never lasted. He always blamed himself for not connecting with the girls he dated. He thought something was wrong with him, that he was incapable of real intimacy. "Until now, I didn't know I could talk about this without feeling sick," he said. "But with you, it's like I finally found someone who sees the parts of me I've been hiding." I didn't cry until after he fell asleep. Not from sadness, from relief, from the weight of 10 years of feelings I'd buried under friendship and fear finally being seen. The next few days were strange, but in a quiet, peaceful way. Josh didn't retreat. He didn't act like anything had gone wrong. In fact, he seemed lighter. Still uncertain, yes, but no longer trapped. We started cooking dinner together, sitting closer on the couch, listening to each other more deeply. One night, he asked if he could hold my hand while we watched a movie. Just that. No expectations. No labels. And when he laced his fingers with mine, it felt like we were finally speaking the same language. But of course, nothing stays simple for long. It started with a knock on the door late one Friday night. I opened it to find Jenna, Josh's ex-girlfriend from a few months ago, standing there in ripped jeans and a hoodie, mascara smudged under her eyes. "Hey," she said. "Josh home." I hesitated. "Yeah, but it's late." Before I could finish, Josh appeared behind me. "Jenna? What the hell?" "I didn't know where else to go," she said, wiping her nose. "You're the only person I trust." He looked at me, then at her. "Come in," he said finally. I stepped aside, heart sinking. She sat on the couch like she'd done it 100 times before. Josh grabbed her a glass of water. She cried, talked about how her dad was sick, her job was falling apart, how lonely she felt. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, watching them talk like I didn't even exist. Eventually, Josh glanced over at me. "You okay?" he mouthed. I nodded, forcing a smile. But deep down, something ugly began to rise, jealousy maybe, or fear. The fear that maybe Jenna would remind him of a simpler life. One that didn't involve complicated feelings or blurred boundaries. One that didn't involve me. She stayed until nearly 3 a.m. Josh walked her to her car. I watched from the window, trying not to read into the hug they shared, trying not to let my old insecurities crawl back into the space Josh had just begun to open. When he came back inside, he looked tired. "She okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. He nodded. "Yeah, just a rough night for her." We stood in silence. Then, before I could stop myself, I blurted, "Did seeing her bring anything back for you?" He looked surprised. "What do you mean? Like feelings? Or doubts?" Josh stepped closer. "Eli," he said, "I don't know where this is going. I don't know what this is. But I know I don't want to go backwards. Jenna's part of the past. You're here, now. And whatever I'm figuring out," he paused, "I want to figure out with you." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. But I also knew this wouldn't be easy. He wasn't ready to come out. He wasn't ready to tell his friends. And there were still shadows from his past that hadn't fully surfaced. But for the first time in years, I wasn't alone in how I felt. And that made all the difference. Josh was changing. I could feel it in small ways, like the way he lingered when we talked, or how he didn't flinch when our fingers brushed anymore. He wasn't pulling away. If anything, he was inching closer day by day. But he was also careful. Like, he didn't want to name whatever this was between us. And a part of me understood that. Still, there was one part of his life that hadn't changed at all: his friends. Josh's friend group from work was loud, macho, and as far as I could tell, deeply unaware of any part of him that might not fit into their beer and football version of masculinity. And that's where the trouble started. It was a Wednesday night when I overheard the conversation. Josh was on the phone, pacing the kitchen. "Yeah, I'm down. All weekend." "Sure." "Eli, I don't know. Man, probably not as seen." "Nah, he's cool. He's just quieter." I stayed in my room, pretending not to listen. When he hung up, he came into the living room with that hesitant look I was starting to recognize, the one he wore when he wasn't sure how I'd take something. "So," he said, "the guys are planning a cabin weekend. Upstate, just for a few days. Bonfire, fishing, drinks, dumb guy stuff." I nodded. "Sounds fun. They want me to come." "You should. They also asked about you." I looked up. Josh shrugged. "I told them you probably wouldn't be into it, but I kind of want you there." "Really?" "Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly your vibe, but I don't know. I think having you there will make it feel more like home." His words settled somewhere deep. "I'll go," I said. He blinked. "You sure?" "Positive." Josh smiled, and something about it made my chest warm. We left early Friday morning. It was a long drive, 4 hours out of the city, up through winding forest roads until we reached a beat-up cabin surrounded by pine trees and silence. Josh's friends, Matt, Connor, and Tyler, were already there, half drunk and laughing too loud for 10 a.m. They greeted Josh with backslaps and jokes. Then they looked at me like I was a foreign exchange student who'd landed in the wrong country. "You must be Eli," Matt said, sizing me up. "Josh's roomie," Connor added with a smirk. "Yup," I said, keeping my tone even. "That's me." Josh hovered near me more than usual. I caught the looks. Tyler nudging Matt, the exchanged glances, the quiet chuckles. None of them said anything outright, but I could tell they'd guessed something. Whether they were right or not didn't matter. The air was charged. We unpacked. Josh and I took the smaller bedroom inside. The other guys crashed in sleeping bags in the loft above. That night, we sat around the fire pit. Beer flowed. Jokes got louder. The topics shifted. Exes, sex, hot girls on Instagram, and all the usual banter I'd grown used to avoiding. Eventually, someone asked a question. "So, Eli," Connor said, swaying a bit from the booze, "you seeing anyone?" I glanced at Josh. "Not really," I said. "Not even dudes?" The words dropped like a firecracker in the silence. Josh stiffened beside me. Connor laughed. "Come on, man. I mean, no judgment or whatever. We just always figured." "You figured what?" Josh said sharply. Connor blinked. "Relax, bro. It's a joke." "Doesn't sound like one." Tyler jumped in. "We're just messing around." "It's cool. You know we don't care who your boy here likes. As long as he doesn't hit on us, right? More laughter. I stood slowly. I'm heading in. Josh stood too. Me too. We walked back toward the cabin in silence. Inside the room, I sat on the bed, heart still thudding. Josh closed the door and leaned against it. I should have said something, he muttered. You don't owe them anything. I replied. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I hate how they talk, like everything's a joke, and you didn't deserve that. I nodded. I'm used to it, but you shouldn't have to be. He walked over and sat beside me. For a long time, he didn't speak. Then he said, You make me want to be braver. Those words undid something in me. I turned to him, Then be brave. Josh looked at me, and in that moment, something shifted again, like the tension from earlier had burned away, leaving nothing but honesty behind. He leaned in, slowly, carefully, and I met him halfway. The kiss was soft, real, no confusion, no pretending, just two people figuring it out together. When we pulled back, neither of us said a word. We didn't need to. The next morning, things were different. We didn't say what had happened, didn't label it, but it was there in the way Josh passed me coffee first, in the way his eyes lingered, in the half smile he gave me across the porch. Matt noticed. So, he said while Josh was inside, You too close, huh? I kept my tone light. We've been best friends for a long time. Yeah, but now you're what? Best friends with benefits. I turned slowly. Is that a problem? He shrugged. Nah, just wondering when he was going to tell the rest of us. Maybe when he's ready. Matt studied me. You care about him? More than you know. He didn't say anything after that. But later, when the others were down by the lake, Matt pulled Josh aside. I couldn't hear what they said, but Josh looked stiff, like he was trying not to explode. He walked back to me with tight shoulders and flushed cheeks. What happened? I asked. Nothing, he muttered. Just Matt being Matt. But I knew it wasn't nothing. Something had been said, something that brought the wall back up. That night, there was tension in the air. Too much alcohol. Too many unspoken words. And one moment that nearly cracked everything wide open. Connor suggested truth or dare, laughing like they were all teenagers again. No way, Josh said. Come on, bro. Tyler grinned. Let's see what secrets you're hiding. Josh looked at me, then back at them. I'll go first, Connor said. Eli, truth or dare? I felt every eye on me. Truth, I said quietly. Have you ever had feelings for someone in this group? Josh's jaw clenched. I stared at Connor. Yeah, I said. He blinked. Wait, seriously? Yup. I didn't say more. Didn't have to. They all looked at Josh. He stood abruptly. This is stupid. And then, before anyone could stop him, he said it. Yes. Okay. I like him. Silence. Pin drop silence. Josh's voice was rough. He's not just my best friend. He's the first person I felt real around in years. You want to laugh? Go ahead. I'm done hiding. He turned and walked out the door. I followed. Outside, under the stars. He was pacing, breathing hard. Josh, I said. I shouldn't have said that. No, you needed to. He stopped, looked at me like I was the only steady thing left in his world. Did I just screw everything up? No, I said softly. You finally started living. The drive home was quiet. Not the bad kind of quiet, just loaded, like both of us were swimming in the aftershock of what had happened back at the cabin. Josh didn't say much, and I didn't push. But every now and then, I'd catch him glancing over at me with this unreadable look in his eyes, somewhere between fear and freedom, like he was still adjusting to what it meant to stop hiding. We got home around sunset. The city noise greeted us like a wave we'd forgotten existed. Josh helped carry the bags in, then collapsed on the couch, sighing deeply. You okay? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, I think so. But his eyes told a different story. I sat beside him. You did something brave back there. He gave me a weak smile. Yeah, and now I have to live with it. You don't have to live with it alone. Josh turned his head slowly and looked at me. Really looked. I don't deserve you, he said. That's not your call to make. He let out a short laugh. God, how did I go from being the guy who had it all figured out to the guy who doesn't even know what to do with his feelings? You didn't fall apart, I said. You just stopped pretending. That landed. He didn't say anything, but I could tell the words meant more than he'd let on. Over the next few days, things began to shift. Josh didn't go back to work right away. He said he needed space. Mental health days, he joked, but I knew it wasn't really a joke. I think he was scared to face his friends again, scared what they'd say, or worse, what they'd think silently and never say out loud. Meanwhile, I tried to be present without being overwhelming. We cooked together, watched movies, took walks. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. But I could feel it. He was changing from the inside out. And then something happened. Something I didn't expect. It started with a phone call. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard Josh's voice rise sharply from the living room. What the hell, man? No, you don't get to twist it like that. You were the one who kept making jokes. Nah, don't pretend like you didn't know what you were doing. I stepped out to see Josh pacing, phone in hand, eyes blazing. I said what I said, Matt, and I'm not taking it back. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe that says more about you than it does about me. He hung up without another word. He stood there, breathing hard, phone still clenched in his hand. You okay? I asked gently. He looked at me, jaw tight. He told the rest of the crew. And he said I've changed, that I'm not the same guy they used to know. Said they're all talking behind my back now, like I'm some freak. I stepped closer. You're not a freak. You're just finally being honest. Josh nodded slowly, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. Then why does it hurt like this? Because for the first time, you're not wearing armor. He sat down heavily, covering his face with his hands. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. You are, I said, kneeling in front of him. You've always been strong. You just didn't know how deep it went. He looked up, and something broke in his expression, something vulnerable and raw. And that's when I knew it was my turn. That night after dinner, I told him something I'd never told anyone. We were sitting on the balcony, wrapped in blankets, sipping hot cocoa like kids. I need to tell you something, I said. Josh looked over, brows slightly raised. I've never told anyone this, not even my therapist. Okay, he said softly. I'm listening. When I was 17, I fell in love with a guy, my first real crush. He was 2 years older. Football player. Loud, charismatic total flirt. Josh's lips twitched. Sounds familiar. I smiled faintly. Yeah, you'd think I'd learn. What happened? I thought he liked me back. We used to hang out a lot. He'd text me late at night, ask me to sneak out, come chill in his car, listen to music. He'd lean close when he talked, brush my hand by accident. I started to believe it meant something. I paused. Then one night, he kissed me, and I kissed him back. It was everything. For me, at least. Josh listened in silence, eyes locked on mine. The next day, he told everyone I came on to him, that I tried to kiss him, that I made him uncomfortable. Josh's eyes widened. What? I became the school joke for weeks. People would whisper when I passed. Teachers acted different. I stopped going to lunch. My parents didn't understand why I suddenly refused to go to school. A tear slid down my cheek, and he never spoke to me again. Josh reached over and took my hand, squeezing it gently. I didn't trust anyone after that. Until you. He didn't speak. He just leaned forward and rested his forehead against mine. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. That moment sealed something between us. It wasn't about sex, or labels, or even romance. It was about safety, truth, trust. We started rebuilding ourselves and each other. Josh began seeing a counselor who specialized in identity trauma. He said it helped, even if it was hard. He didn't come out to everyone. Not yet, but he stopped denying who he was around me. And that was enough, for now. We spent more time together than ever. Not just in the same space, but in the same headspace. One night, while lying on the couch watching reruns, Josh turned to me and said, "You were the one constant. Through all the noise, the confusion, the hiding, you were always there." I smiled. "Still am." And he added, "I don't know what the future looks like, but I want to have you in it." That was the first time he'd ever said anything like that out loud. It wasn't a proposal. It wasn't even a confession. It was something better. It was real. But just when it felt like we were finally finding peace, something from my past came back. An Instagram DM from him, the boy from high school, the one who kissed me and destroyed me the next day. His message was short. "Hey, I owe you an apology. I think about that night a lot. I'm sorry for what I did. I was scared." My hands trembled as I read it. Josh was brushing his teeth when I walked into the bathroom, pale and silent. He looked up immediately. "Eli, what's wrong?" I handed him the phone. He read the message twice, then looked at me. "You okay?" "I don't know." "You don't have to reply." "I kind of want to." "Then do it, but only if you want to, not for him." I nodded, tears burning the back of my throat. It's just weird. I waited years for him to say something. Now that he has, it's like I don't even know if I need it anymore. Josh wrapped his arms around me, toothbrush still in his hand. "You don't, not if it costs your peace." I didn't respond that night, but I knew something had shifted. The past no longer had the same grip on me. And Josh was becoming my present in ways I never thought possible. There's a kind of quiet that settles in when you start to feel safe with someone. It's not silence. It's not distance. It's a kind of peace, like your nervous system finally stops buzzing and you can just exist. That's how it felt with Josh lately. He still hadn't figured everything out, but the walls weren't so high anymore. He let me see parts of him no one else ever had. And in return, I gave him all the pieces of myself I used to keep locked away. It was working. Until the knock at the door. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon. I'd just gotten out of the shower, hair damp, wearing Josh's oversized hoodie. He was sitting on the couch, legs stretched out, flipping through channels with no real interest. Then we heard it. 3 sharp knocks. Josh looked at me, confused. "You expecting someone?" I shook my head. He got up, walked to the door, opened it, and froze. I leaned over to see who it was. A tall man, late 30s maybe. Strong jaw, light stubble, familiar eyes. "Uncle Ben," Josh said, startled. Ben grinned. "Surprise?" Josh stepped back instinctively. "What are you doing here?" "Was in town. Figured I'd drop in, see how my favorite nephew's doing." His voice was friendly, but something about his presence made my stomach tighten. There was a heaviness behind his eyes, like he didn't miss much. Ben stepped in, giving me a once-over. "And this is Eli," Josh said, voice too fast. "My roommate." I tried to smile. "Hey, roommate," Ben repeated slowly. "Got it." Josh motioned toward the couch. "You want a drink or something?" "Ben, Saturday. Nah, I won't stay long. Just driving through. Thought I'd check in." Josh stayed standing. And that's when I saw it. The shift. His posture. His tone. His energy. Like someone flipped a switch, and he went back into that old version of himself. The one that played it straight, literally. The one who didn't talk about feelings. The one who fit in because he knew what happened if he didn't. I hated seeing it, but I also understood it. Ben looked around the apartment like he was inspecting it. Nice place. Bigger than I expected for 2 guys fresh out of school. Josh chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, we got lucky." "And what do you do again, Eli?" "I'm studying graphic design." Ben nodded. "Creative type. Makes sense." Something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. Josh cleared his throat. "Uncle Ben works construction. Same company I was with last year." Ben leaned back. "Still talk to the boys?" Josh nodded. "Sometimes." "Matt still a pain in the ass?" Josh smiled tightly. "Yeah." There was a pause. Then Ben's eyes shifted to me again. So, how long you two been living together? Josh jumped in before I could answer. Couple years. Close. Josh looked at me for just a second, then back to his uncle. Yeah, he's like family. I flinched. I don't think Josh even realized what he said, or maybe he did. But in that moment, something inside me cracked a little. Not because he was lying, but because I knew why. Ben nodded slowly. Right, family. After 15 more minutes of vague, catch-up talk, Ben stood. I should hit the road, he said. Long drive. Josh walked him to the door. Ben clapped him on the shoulder. Take care of yourself, Josh. Then, more quietly, he added, You know your dad's still not over what happened with your cousin. Josh froze. Ben leaned in. Some things are better left buried. You get me? Josh didn't reply. Ben left. The door closed with quiet thud, and Josh just stood there, still, breathing hard. I approached him slowly. You okay? He nodded, but his fists were clenched, jaw tight, shoulders stiff. That's what this is about, he muttered. Why I could never tell anyone. What do you mean? He turned to me, eyes blazing. Ben knew about that summer, about Nick, and instead of helping me, he treated me like I was the problem. I swallowed hard. He blamed you. He said I confused Nick, that maybe I led him on, that it'd be easier if we just didn't talk about it again. I felt sick. All this time, Josh said, I thought I was protecting them from the truth, but really I was just carrying their shame. He sank onto the couch, shoulders trembling. I sat beside him. You don't owe them silence, I said. I don't even know who I am without it. Then maybe it's time to find out. The next few days were rocky. Josh barely spoke. He didn't touch me, didn't reach out. It was like he'd disappeared into himself, rebuilding the walls I thought we'd torn down. I gave him space. As much as it hurt, I knew this wasn't about me. He needed to unravel in his own way, but it didn't make it easier. I missed him, not just physically. I missed the real him. The Josh who was finally learning how to be soft without shame. The one who looked at me like I was safe. And then, finally, after almost a week, he came into my room. I was reading, curled up under a blanket. He stood at the door, hesitant. Can I come in? Always. He sat on the edge of the bed, silent. Then he said, I wrote a letter. I looked at him. To who? My dad. My uncle. My whole damn family. I sat up straighter. I don't think I'm ready to talk to them yet, but I needed to get it out. Everything. What happened with Nick. What I've been carrying. How it twisted everything. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. And I put something else in the letter, he said. What? He looked at me. That I'm not ashamed of who I love. The room went quiet. Then I asked, Do you know who that is? He nodded. I think I've known for a long time. Later that night, as we lay in bed, not as roommates, not as confused friends, but something more honest, I asked him a question. If you could go back and change how this all started, me, you, that night, would you? He shook his head. No, because for the first time in my life, I'm not pretending. Josh never intended to send the letter. He wrote it because he needed to feel the truth out loud. To say would have been choking him from the inside for over a decade. It was raw, honest, painful, full of things he had never spoken, and maybe didn't plan to. But sometimes life doesn't wait for us to be ready, and secrets don't always stay hidden. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I came home from the store with groceries in hand, and found Josh sitting at the table, pale, shoulders stiff, a single envelope resting in front of him. His eyes snapped up when I walked in. What's wrong? I asked immediately. He held up the letter. His letter. The one I wrote last week. He said. I nodded. Yeah, it's gone. I frowned. Gone. I left it in the back of my notebook. Didn't even realize it was missing until the day. I think, he swallowed, I think it was in the folder I brought to Ben's. My heart sank. Josh. I didn't mean to send it, but now it's out there, and someone's read it. I know they have. Who? He looked at me, eyes haunted. My dad, Josh's father, David, was a no-nonsense man. Blue collar, ex-military, strict Catholic. The kind of man who said things like, boys don't cry and real men don't make excuses. Josh rarely talked about him in detail, but when he did, it was always with caution, like mentioning his name too many times might summon something dark. That evening, the call came. I was in the bedroom when I heard Josh answer. Dad. His voice was tight. Then silence. Long, tense silence. I stepped out quietly. Josh was standing in the middle of the living room. Phone pressed his ear, his face frozen in that expression I'd only seen once before, when his uncle visited. No, he finally said, voice shaking. I didn't mean for you to see that. But yes, it's true. Everything. Pause. I'm not lying. Longer pause. I was a kid. Nick was older. You never wanted to hear that before. My chest twisted. I could only hear Josh's side, but it was enough. No, I'm not confused. I like who I like. And right now that person is Eli. I stopped breathing. The silence that followed stretched forever. Then Josh whispered, if that means I'm not welcome in your house again, so be it. He ended the call, then just stood there, trembling. I walked over and wrapped my arms around him. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just buried his face in my shoulder and stayed there for a long time. He didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. I tried not to smother him, but I checked in constantly. Cooking meals, sitting beside him, sleeping next to him even when he said he didn't need me to. He barely said a word. Until Saturday night. We were lying in bed, lights off, just the hum of the fan filling the room. He said I was disgusting. Josh whispered suddenly. I turned toward him in the dark. He said I made it up, that I was trying to ruin Nick's life, that I let some liberal college nonsense poison my brain. I reached out and touched his cheek. He flinched, then leaned into it. I told him about you, he continued, and he laughed, said I must be desperate for attention, that no real man would want to be with another. I clenched my jaw. He's wrong. I know, but hearing it from your dad, it hits different. I'm proud of you, I said. For what? For not hanging up sooner. Josh let out a small, broken laugh. You're stronger than you think. The next day, a package arrived. No note, no explanation. Just a small cardboard box with Josh's name on it, mailed from his hometown. Inside, 2 framed childhood photos, a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, his favorite, and a church bulletin dated last Sunday. Josh sat at the table staring at it all. I think that was my dad's way of saying I'm erased. He said quietly, these are the only things I ever told him I'd want if I left. I reached out and took his hand. You're not erased. I might be. You're becoming. That week, something shifted in me too. Watching Josh go through all this, his unraveling, his reckoning, it forced me to look at myself. For so long, I clung to the idea that healing would come from someone else choosing me back. That if Josh just said the right words, it would fix the cracks inside me. But healing doesn't work that way. It starts with choosing yourself. So I went back into my DMs. Back to the message I never responded to, the one from the boy who hurt me years ago. And I typed, I appreciate your apology. I've spent years trying to understand what happened. I've realized now it wasn't about me being too much. It was about you not being ready. I forgive you, but I don't need anything from you anymore. I hit send, then I deleted the thread. And for the first time in years, I felt free. That night, Josh came to bed with something different in his eyes. Not fear, not guilt, something more grounded. I've been thinking, he said, lying beside me, staring at the ceiling. Dangerous. He smirked. I want to do something. Okay. I want to take you to dinner. Like a real dinner. Not delivery. Not hiding. Not pretending. My heart skipped. Like a date. Yeah, he said. A real one. Just us. And I don't care who sees. The following weekend, we went out. He wore a navy button-down. I wore black. He opened the door for me. I made fun of him for it. We laughed. We drank. We talked, and then he reached across the table and held my hand. Not under the table, not in secret, right there, in public. And for once, the world didn't end. No one threw us out. No one stared. No one whispered. We just were. Two people falling into something fragile and real, piece by piece. But when we got home, there was one final surprise. A voicemail from someone we hadn't heard from since the cabin trip. Matt. Josh listened to it with furrowed brows, then handed me the phone. Hey, man, I just wanted to say I was a jerk at the cabin. Before that, too, I've been thinking a lot about stuff I don't like admitting. The truth is, you being honest made me realize how not honest I've been. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. You didn't deserve that. You've got guts, dude. And Eli seems like the real deal. Take care of each other, all right? I'll see you around. Josh looked at me. I smiled. Told you, you're braver than you think. He shook his head. No, he said. I'm just lucky to be loved by someone who waited for me to catch up. Josh had always been the kind of person people expected things from. The tough one, the protector, the guy who could make anyone laugh, but never really let anyone in. That version of him had served a purpose. But now, he was peeling it back layer by layer. And with each piece he shed, he started revealing parts of himself I didn't know existed. One of them, a dream he buried so deep, he'd almost forgotten it was real. It started one evening when we were organizing boxes in the hall closet, a mess we kept putting off. Josh pulled out an old duffel bag and unzipped it. Inside were stacks of notebooks, a sketch pad, and a few crumpled flyers. What's this? I asked, flipping one open. He didn't answer right away. I turned the flyer around. Summer Theater Intensive, Nashville, audition open call. I blinked. You did theater? Josh chuckled. I almost did back in high school. I used to sneak into drama rehearsals after football practice. No way. He shrugged a little sheepishly. It wasn't a big deal. I never auditioned for anything. I just watched, memorized monologues in my room, wrote scenes I never showed anyone. I stared at him, stunned. You wrote plays? Tiny ones, he said quickly, waving it off. Nothing serious. I looked back at the worn notebook in my hand. It had his name on the cover in faded black ink. I opened to a random page. Dialogue, stage directions, emotion. It was raw, but it was good. Josh, I said quietly, this is real. He didn't respond, just stood there, rubbing the back of his neck, like a kid caught doing something embarrassing. I forgot I even kept these, he muttered. I guess once I realized being the drama kid didn't fit the image people had of me, I let it go. Because of what happened with Nick? He nodded slowly. Everything changed after that. I didn't want to draw attention. Didn't want people looking at me like I was different. So I ditched anything that felt too emotional, too vulnerable. I closed the notebook and looked at him. Do you ever wish you hadn't? All the time. Then do it, I said. He looked up. Do what? Start again. He laughed like I'd said something absurd. What? Join the community theater? At 26. Why not? Because I'm a construction worker who hasn't acted a day in his life. But you felt things. You've written. That's half the battle. Josh looked down at the notebook in my hand. I wouldn't even know where to start. I grinned. Lucky for you, I'm a design student. I can make a killer audition portfolio. He rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. Over the next few weeks, something amazing started to happen. Josh began writing again. Late at night, in the quiet corner of the living room, while the city buzzed outside, I'd wake up to find pages on the coffee table, full of scribbled ideas and snippets of scenes. He wouldn't talk about them much, but I could see it in his eyes. He was alive in a way I hadn't seen before. Eventually, I convinced him to attend a local playwriting workshop. Just one session. To sit, to listen. He was nervous, even debated backing out last minute. But when he came home that night, there was a spark in him I hadn't seen since we were kids. They got it, he said. The things I wrote, they didn't laugh. They asked questions. They wanted more. I smiled. Of course they did. He grinned, shaking his head. I forgot what it felt like to be seen without fear. But like all good things, this came a challenge. The final session of the workshop involved a public reading at a local black box theater. Each writer had the chance to select a short scene to be read out loud by volunteer actors. Josh's name was on the list, and he picked a scene that hit far too close to home, a fictionalized version of us, of that first night, when I thought he was asleep. He didn't tell me beforehand. He wanted it to speak for itself. I sat in the third row, surrounded by strangers, as two amateur actors stepped onto the bare stage and began reading words that mirrored our private story almost exactly. The room was still. No one laughed. No one looked away. When it ended, the silence hung for just a moment. Then applause, long and loud. Josh didn't look at me until the lights came back on. When he did, his eyes were glistening. Afterward, people came up to him, complimented the honesty, asked where the story came from. He kept it vague, just smiled and said, "Life?" But on the walk home, he turned to me and said, "I want to tell more stories. Our stories. Ones that aren't afraid of being too soft or too much or too complicated." I nodded. "Then tell them." A few nights later, as we were getting ready for bed, Josh sat on the edge of the mattress, thoughtful. "There's something I've been thinking about. Dangerous. I teased, echoing what he once said to me. He smiled. "I want to go back." I sat up. "Back?" "To my hometown." I blinked. "Are you sure?" "No, but I think I need to. Not for them. Not to change their minds. Just to see if I can stand there and not shrink." I nodded slowly. "Then I'll go with you." He looked surprised. "You would?" "Of course I would." He reached over and took my hand. And for once, there was no tremble in his grip. We drove out the next weekend. The town hadn't changed. Same gas station. Same church. Same bar on the corner with the same flickering neon sign. That red cold beer, Warm Hearts, which felt ironic considering how Josh described growing up there. He showed me the school where he and Nick used to walk after practice. The corner where they kissed. The bench where Josh sat the day after, alone. We didn't speak much. There wasn't anything to say. Just remembering. Reclaiming. At one point, he pulled over near a small park. "This is where I used to write," he said. We sat there, the windows cracked, the air thick with history. I thought, maybe if I wrote it down, I could control it, make it stop hurting. Did it help? He shook his head. "Not then. And now?" He glanced at me. "I think it might." We didn't visit his parents. He didn't want to. But before we left, we did one last thing. We stopped outside the community center where Josh had seen his first play rehearsal. There was a new flyer taped to the door. "Open auditions next month. New Voices series." Josh stared at it, then took a photo. "Maybe next time," he said. I smiled. "I'll be in the front row." On the drive home, with the windows down and the wind in our faces, Josh reached over and rested his hand on my knee. It was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I used to think I'd have to change who I was to survive." I looked over. "And now?" I asked. He smiled. "Now I know. I just had to find the right person to survive with." The trip back from Josh's hometown changed something. Not just in him, but in us. It wasn't some grand epiphany. And it didn't solve every scar or silence. But something about facing the ghosts of his past made the present feel more real. He wasn't hiding anymore. Not from me. Not from himself. And for a while, it felt like we were finally breathing on the same rhythm. No secrets. No filters. But then the email came. It was late morning, a Tuesday. I was on the balcony, sketching. Josh stepped outside, phone in hand, unreadable expression on his face. He sat beside me, said nothing. "What is it?" I asked. He showed me the screen. Subject, job offer, Pacific Steel Management, Denver Division. The kind of email that usually comes with fireworks. But there were none in his eyes. "It's a promotion," he said quietly. "Bigger site, more pay, Management role. I felt something sink in my chest. Denver? He nodded. They want me to start in 4 weeks. I closed my sketchbook. Josh rubbed his temple. It's everything I thought I wanted. But he looked at me, and the hesitation in his voice gave everything away. But it means starting over. Again. In a city where no one knows me. Where I could just go back to who I was before. Do you want that? No, he said instantly. God, no. But then he added, but it'd be easier. No messy past. No old friends watching my every move. And no me, I said softly. Josh looked down. I don't want to lose you, he said. Then don't. He exhaled slowly. What if I'm not strong enough to be this version of me in front of new people? What if I fall back into the old act? I touched his hand. Then I'll remind you. The following days were filled with tension, not between us, but around us. Josh walked like he had weights on his back. He went through the motions, work, gym, sleep, but I could feel it, the indecision chewing at him. He didn't say it, but I could see the unspoken thought behind his eyes. What if leaving means losing everything I've just started to build? One night, I found him sitting alone in the kitchen, a beer in front of him, unopened. I slid into the seat across from him. I've been thinking, he said. Yeah, I don't want to go backwards, but I also don't know how to move forward unless I'm the one in charge. I waited. I thought this job meant success, he continued, but now I'm wondering if success means something else. Like what? Like being able to wake up next to the person you love and not feel like a fraud. My heart stilled. It wasn't the first time he'd said something close to that, but it was the way he said it now, plain, quiet, without fear. That struck me. You said love. I whispered. He looked at me. I know. And you meant it? He nodded. I think I've meant it for longer than I was willing to admit. That night, we lay in bed, limbs tangled, the hum of city life muffled outside the window. Josh spoke into quiet. What if I asked you to come with me? I turned toward him. To Denver? Yeah. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I didn't know. Moving for someone meant betting on more than just love. It meant believing this version of Josh would last, would grow, not fold under pressure, that we could survive a new place, a new pace. Could we even do that? I asked, do you want to build a life together or just run away from this one? He went quiet, not in a bad way, just thoughtful. Then he said, maybe I don't need to leave to move forward. The next morning, he declined the offer. He didn't make a big deal out of it. No announcements, no dramatic gestures. He just opened his laptop, wrote a short reply, clicked send, and leaned back. When I looked at him, he was smiling. I want to finish what I started here, he said. You mean the job? No, he said, turning to me. Us. But just when it seemed like we were finally aligned, life reminded us how fragile things still were. The following week, Josh's company laid off half their crew. Budget cuts. Suddenly, he wasn't managing a project. He was packing up his desk. And with no promotion, no safety net, and no backup plan, the pressure came crashing down. For the first few days, he acted like he was fine. I'll find something new, he said. It's just a bump. But by day 5, I found him staring at job listings, eyes empty. This is all I know how to do, he whispered. I sat beside him. No, it's just all you've been allowed to do. He looked at me. I tapped the edge of the notebook he kept on the table, the one filled with his writing. You've got a voice, Josh, one that people listen to, and you've got stories, not just ones about us. Yours. They matter. You think I can make a living off feelings? I think you can make a life off them. It took another week, and a lot of gentle nudging. But eventually, Josh submitted his first short script to an indie theater company running a New Voices showcase. He almost didn't do it. Who's going to want to hear from some small-town, ex-football kid with daddy issues? But he hit send anyway. And 2 weeks later, he got the email. We'd love to produce your piece for the fall showcase. Congratulations, Josh. He read it 5 times before looking up. They picked me, he said. I smiled. Of course they did. He laughed, then kissed me, sudden and real. I'm scared, he whispered. Good, I said. That means it's worth doing. That night, we curled up on the couch, my head on his shoulder, his thumb tracing circles on my hand. You changed my life, he said softly. I looked up. No, you reclaimed it. I just happened to be standing there when you did. The theater was small. Bare walls. Black chairs. The kind of place you walk into and immediately feel every heartbeat inside. Opening night was in 2 days. Josh's name was printed on a modest program in clean serif font. Pieces of Me, written by Josh L. It was real now, his story, on stage. And even though I'd read every word, seen every draft, watched him wrestle with every edit, it still didn't feel real until we stepped inside the venue for final rehearsal. Feels like I can't breathe, he whispered beside me, eyes scanning the empty seats. I squeezed his hand. That's what makes it matter. Josh had always been scared of being seen, for who he really was. And this play was everything, not just about us, but about him. It was about the boy who kissed someone in secret, the guilt that followed, the silence he carried, the masks he wore, the shame that carved him hollow, the love that tried to patch it back together. The actors on stage weren't perfect, but they brought his words to life with something raw and real that hit deeper than any polished performance ever could. During the final scene where the main character whispers, I'm still here, even after all of it, Josh reached over and held my hand. Tightly. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The day of the premiere, we both pretended to be calm. Josh wore black jeans and a crisp button-down. I offered to fix his collar twice. Even though it wasn't crooked, we got to the theater early. The director greeted him with a proud smile. The other playwrights nodded in quiet respect. This wasn't just a show. It was a confession with stage lights. The room filled quickly. Strangers, theater lovers, a couple of Josh's friends from the writing group, a few from work. And then, just as the house lights began to dim, Josh froze. I followed his gaze. Standing in the back of the theater, scanning the rows, was a face I recognized only from old photos. Josh's father. Josh gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. I leaned toward him. Do you want me to ask him to leave? He didn't answer right away. Then, softly, no. His voice cracked. I need to do this, even if he's watching. We sat down, side by side, the weight of the moment pressing into every breath. The lights dimmed, the room silenced. The first line hit the stage like a soft bomb. Do you remember the first time someone told you who you were before you knew it yourself? And just like that, the play began. It was 20 minutes of truth. Josh didn't flinch. Even when the character said, he kissed me like he was drowning, and I became the air he would never admit he needed. Even when the scene changed to a fight with a father figure, a scene so familiar I had to clench my jaw. Even when the audience fell silent after the line. If loving him means losing you, I'll survive the loss. When the final lights faded, there was a pause, a heartbeat, then applause, loud, echoing, sustained. Josh stood hesitantly. When the director pulled him toward the stage for a bow, he looked stunned, shaken, bare, but alive. After the show, people came up to him. Some clapped him on the back. Some just said, thank you, eyes glossy. One woman whispered, that was my son's story, too. He just doesn't know how to say it yet. Josh nodded, eyes wet. I watched him in awe. He looked like someone standing in his skin for the first time. But then he saw his father standing alone in the back corner of the room. Still, stoic, watching. Josh turned to me. I said nothing, just gently touched his shoulder. He walked over, each step slow. I kept a distance, close enough if he needed me, far enough if he didn't. His father didn't speak right away. He looked older than the photo I'd seen, more worn, but his posture was still military straight. I didn't know, he said quietly. Josh stood firm. You didn't want to. David's jaw tensed. Then he said, you were brave up there. Josh blinked, stunned. His father looked away. Your mother wouldn't have come. She's not ready. Josh swallowed. And you are... I didn't say that. A pause. I figured if I'm going to lose my son, I might as well know what I'm losing. Josh's voice was quiet but steady. You're not losing me. David looked at him. You lost a version of me you imagined. That's not the same thing. There was silence. Then his father said, I don't understand this. Josh nodded. You don't have to. You just have to see me. David looked down. Then slowly, he nodded once. I'll try. Josh didn't cry until we got home. Not in the car. Not on the walk up. But once we were inside and the door clicked shut behind us, he collapsed into my arms like everything had been holding him up suddenly gave out. I didn't do this to prove anything, he said into my chest. I just needed to stop being afraid of myself. You did? I whispered. You're free now. He looked at me through wet eyes. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to find out. He kissed me then, deep, real, certain. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something we needed to hide from anyone, not even ourselves. If someone had told me a year ago that Josh would one day stand on a stage and bare his heart to a room full of strangers, I would have laughed, not because he couldn't do it, but because I couldn't imagine him ever letting himself. The Josh I knew back then was guarded, quiet, drenched in shame he never asked for. He had built walls so high, even he didn't remember what was on the other side. But here we were. Not only had he stepped out from behind the curtain of who people thought he was, he had set fire to it. And now, we were finally learning what it meant to be whole, together. 3 weeks after the play, I noticed a change in him. It wasn't big. It wasn't loud. It was small moments. The way he spoke more freely around his co-workers. How he touched me in public, not in defiance, but in comfort. How he started saying my partner instead of my roommate. When talking to strangers, I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. We both knew what was happening. Josh was becoming the man he was always meant to be. One quiet morning, he made pancakes. It was raining. The kind of soft drizzle that makes the whole world feel slower. We sat at the table, barefoot, plates steaming. He was unusually quiet. What's up? I asked. He looked at me, biting his lip. I've been thinking about something. Dangerous. I teased. He didn't smile. I want to take a break from construction, he said. I blinked. What? Not forever, he added quickly. But for now, I want to try writing full-time, at least for a little while. I stared. Josh, that's huge. I know, but the play did something to me. Not just the response, but the freedom I felt. Like I wasn't pretending anymore. Like I was finally using my voice instead of burying it under everyone else's expectations. I leaned forward. Then do it. You think I can? I know you can. He looked down, quiet for a moment. I've already got 2 new ideas. One's series. The other's about that summer with Nick. My breath hitched. You're ready for that? He nodded. It doesn't owe me any more. In the following months, our life shifted. He took a sabbatical, spent his mornings in cafes with his laptop, afternoons walking to the park with his notebook in hand. He even signed up for an online writing fellowship. At night, he'd come home and read me lines, ask for feedback, sit on the floor with his legs stretched out and talk about plot twists and character arcs like a teenager discovering his first passion. And me? I designed the cover for his first self-published script collection. We called it When I Wasn't Sleeping. He dedicated it to me. For Eli, who saw me even when I couldn't look at myself. But just as everything felt like it had settled into place, something unexpected happened. Josh's mom reached out. We were watching a movie on the couch when his phone buzzed. He didn't recognize the number, but he answered anyway. Hello. Pause. Then I heard the breath leave his body. Mom. He put the phone on speaker. Her voice was softer than I expected. Older. I saw your play. A friend sent me a video. I wasn't ready to come, but I watched it every second. Josh said nothing. I don't know how to make things right. I really don't. But I know I was wrong to ignore you, to ignore who you are. Still, he didn't speak. Your father, He's trying. Slowly. Clumsily. But I think he's listening now. And I want to listen too. If you'll let me. Josh's hand found mine on the couch. Finally, he said, I don't need you to agree with everything. I know. But I do need you to see me. I'm trying, honey. I really am. He didn't cry until the call ended. Not because it hurt, but because it meant something was healing. Slowly, imperfectly, but finally. Weeks passed. We traveled to small cities where his plays were picked up by local theaters. He got an email from a college drama club asking to perform a monologue from Pieces of Me. He said yes. He said yes to everything. And me? I said yes to late-night road trips, to small hotel rooms and shared sandwiches on rest stops, to life. Then, one night in late autumn, back in our apartment after months of nonstop movement, Josh came into the room holding something behind his back. I was in bed, sketching. He looked nervous. I raised an eyebrow. You okay? He sat beside me. I've been writing something else. Okay. A new story. A short one. He handed me a folded sheet of paper. I opened it. It wasn't a script. It was a letter. Eli, when we first met, I didn't know how to breathe around you. Not because I was scared of you, but because I was terrified of the parts of myself you saw, the ones I tried to hide. You didn't save me. You waited for me to save myself. And now, I want to spend the rest of my life giving that same love back to you. So, will you marry me? I looked up. Josh was already pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. No grand speech. No crowd. Just us. In the room where it all began. Where he once stood at my door pretending I was just his roommate. Where I once pretended to sleep so he could let his guard down. Where the silence was once heavy and now, finally, peaceful. Yes, I whispered. He smiled, slipping the ring onto my finger. And when he kissed me, it didn't feel like a chapter closing. It felt like a new story just beginning.